Welcome to my fight show. I'm Mika Frankl. Let's talk about the world of combat sports. And dude, we got a lot to get to tonight, including a stacked guest list. If you're reading it, if you're able to see it on social media, Victor Santillan the third, coming off of main event victory, TKO, in the main event of CFC 6. He's going to be first up here just in about 15 minutes. We also are going to have MMA Island founder, media member. He's worked with Bloody Elbow, with ESP, or with Sports Illustrated MMA, Christopher De Santiago is going to be here, and we're going to talk everything besides the UFC. Yes, everything besides the UFC, because I already talked about the UFC and about UFC 328 this weekend, Newark, New Jersey, on MMA After Hours with Mr. Michael Carlisle. That's up cageminds.com, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, just like this show. But right now, you're here. Check that out later to get the full UFC 328 preview. So we're going to talk about PFL, BKFC, BKB, all of that great stuff with Chris De Santiago. We are also going to be joined by, and this is boxing royalty, Jamel Herring, former world champion, about to be fighting for the BKFC vacant bantamweight title. And as we're talking about boxing, we're going to get a bit deeper into the glove boxing with Southwest Fight News. Jorge Hernandez used to sit alongside him, Combat Sports Weekly, and get to do a roundtable. So we're going to bring him on. Well, it's Angelo Leo Fight Week coming off of Inoue, Benavidez. Zuffa Boxing is doing a whole lot. I need an aficionado on the sport of boxing to help me understand what we're seeing out of the talent and about the big fights that are coming up. Saturday, UFC, early morning, early morning, UFC from Perth, Australia. Absolutely dynamic, spectacular, dismantling by Carlos Prates. Absolutely just a thrashing of Jack Della Magdalena, the Australian former welterweight champion, now dropping his second in a row. We dissected that one hugely on MMA After Hours, me and Michael Carlisle. Tomorrow, Pro Wrestling After Hours. There's WWE Backlash this weekend on top of the UFC 328 card. And AEW has a lot going on. I think that Will Ospreay headed back over to Japan. So yeah, I'll cover the world of pro wrestling. Like Saturday, my pro wrestling eyes were focused on the El Rey Theater, was there for Duke City Championship Wrestling, and got to see Birthday Bash number 3. If you haven't seen the huge news, new champions galore. Brian Idol betrays Saleh Taylor. For sale is stunned. You guys got to get over on the YouTube, Duke City Championship Wrestling, NWA New Mexico, to see all of that unfold. Thunder now has the Route 66 championship. I won't say that we were good luck having him on as guest last week. A legend who deserved it pulls it out in a fatal 5-way, and the Chile tag team titles go to La Migra after the Southern Gentlemen vacated. We already told you they were not going to show up because they were too busy with the Savannah Bananas at Texas A&M. Wild night of action. We have a new number 1 contender. Drea is going to be taking on Zamaya in the future. The Enchanted Women's title going to be on the line. It was a wonderful night. It was a dramatic night. It was a sold out night again at the El Rey Theater. If you have the opportunity and you're here locally in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you love the art of pro wrestling. Every 6 weeks, they're back at the El Rey Theater. You can catch up on YouTube. You can see the dramatics, the theatrics, and all of the physicality. Some of the best pro wrestling locally around. Definitely check that one out. I was happy to be there. And on a sad note, we did see Hobo Hank take the loss to Mike Mondo. still your NWA national championship, but really cool to see a national champion, to see that historic red belt be defended here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, somewhere since the 80s, since that had happened. This weekend, UFC 328. I was a little late on getting our booker. Not sure if we're going to get James Romero on this week. If not, I am going to catch up with him during the week and catch you guys up on our bets and predictions after we had really had a hot start over the first two events where we were keeping track of his bets and picks. I mean, 9-2 for UFC 324 and 10-3 UFC 325. Unfortunately for us, the bottom came out and we only went 5-6 for UFC 326, and even worse at 4-8 for UFC 327. So UFC 326 betting kind of went by the wayside. We're going to see if we can get James Romero in a little bit later tonight, or possibly this week we'll put up a special and see if we can still get those bets and predictions as we're trying to keep up with how much we really know about the sport of MMA and having our better here. We're a couple minutes away from Victor Santillan III, Guapo as he's affectionately named, the El Paso fighter coming out of the Elite Kickboxing Academy. It was just April 25th, so we're talking about 10 days ago. CFC 6 Proving Grounds, a first-round TKO after what was quite a long, well, not a long because it was only 4 years, but a bunch of fights in those 4 years as an amateur, including a CFC amateur title. We're going to have him on to talk about his story, what brought him to the sport, and where he wants to go from here. PFL, Sioux Falls, South Dakota this past weekend. Logan Storley, absolutely dominant with his wrestling. Excuse me on that one, everybody. Logan Storley, absolutely dominant with his wrestling due to cage grabs. You end up with a 30-25 across the board. 30-25, an absolute mauling. You want to keep something absolutely in place, you grab your Barber's R Us Beard Balm. I don't have it handy this week, but I'm telling you, the Velvet Noir, holding in place, giving it the shine, great cologne-esque aroma. Dominant like Logan Storley was. This, though, is the kind of product you know what to do with next. Where on the other side, I'm still kind of wondering if the PFL knows what to do here with Logan Storley, a former Bellator champion, 33 years old. So we're nowhere near saying he's maxed out his athletic prime. But when we talk about Thad ahead of him, Magomed Umatalov, Shamil Musafayev, or Ramazan Kurmagomedov, who reportedly actually retired after defending his title, I don't know if this moves Logan Storley. Well, it was dominant. Florian Zadelli didn't have a lot of success in the second round. The third round, he did let his striking go, caused damage around the left eye, did cut open Storley. Well, that was after 10 minutes of dominance. A guy was still able to get off on you. I'm not sure. I know that Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the hometown, the backyard, the pressure, big win, huge crowd, main event victory, though. With all the improvements that the PFL is making, I'm just still a little confused as to what we make. Where did this victory take Logan Storley, and what does it do for him next? I want to like the PFL. I want to be behind what they're doing. I think the more MMA we have, the better. The more options for the fighters, the better. When you have MVP MMA, and we're going to talk about them hugely next week, and we don't know if they're going to be committed to the game, that still puts a huge precedence on wanting to see improvements from PFL. It's, I want to like you, PFL. You can see going to Pittsburgh, going to Chicago, going overseas to Spain. They've done some good things this year, but I don't know if they've fully been able to capitalize on it. I like what they did going to Sioux Falls, Logan Storley, you get the crowd on his side. I'm just not sure where we take that next step with that move. Co-main event victory, also very impressive for Raji Gazabavov. And with him being a teammate of Usman Nurmagomedov, it also puts him in that same position. He's a great number two, and he really doesn't want to challenge for number one. So is he the placeholder in waiting where it feels like Usman is going to go to the UFC? I'm not sure how it's going to play off, but I would like to see the PFL have a plan. I would like to see the UFC or the PFL be a little more UFC in that. Having matchups that we can point to, hey, this is the next logical move. That is the next logical move. I'm not sure if we were really able to navigate or understand what was the next logical move. Victor Santillan III, any moment, going to be joining us. Saw him in backstage for a second, and I think the connection broke. So hopefully we'll have him in real quick. Probably the most significant victory from the PFL card. Simon Powell, number 6 at light heavyweight, and that's gaining traction and moving in the right direction. We'll probably get back to some more PFL in just a moment, but I do see our first guest is here. Let's bring in Victor Santillan the third. How you doing?
Hey.
What's going on?
Not bad. How you doing, brother?
How you doing? How you doing? Got to see you fight before, but I think this is the first time I'm getting to talk to you.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
Main event victory, hometown. Wasn't even supposed to be the main event. Like, how was last week? How was 2 weeks ago for you? Like, what was that whirlwind like?
So, I was originally gonna fight like towards the end of the fight card, and the CFC, one of the promoters told me, "Hey, like you got bumped up. It just happened overnight." And then I went from the co-main to being the main event, and it was amazing because I believe I needed that little extra push of like, hey, like all eyes are on you, but I didn't feel any pressure whatsoever. I kind of felt more of a honor. Like, I'm able to display my techniques, the things I've practiced, and most importantly, my character, in front of a huge crowd. And I was very blessed enough to, just go out there and perform, So it was very awesome. It was pretty cool, and it was an honor. It was a very much of an honor for me. So
Just that honor. There were no extra nerves or butterflies when you're told, "Hey, not co-main event. Actually, spotlight. You're in the main event. It's all on you now. You are the focus point of the show."
You know, uh, I won't lie to you. Obviously, every fighter gets nervous, but for me, I believe the nerves came from I pray to God I just show out. I show out. Not only win, but I put a dominant performance to see. Because obviously, my last fight didn't go as planned. I left it to the judges' scorecards and I lost. And it was horrible. That lesson itself taught me that I'm not sure when I'm gonna fight again. Even if my body allows me to. So I went out there. There was nerves of like, what, just I want to go out there, perform, and get out of there safe, and I did. I just got a little bit of a scar right here and a little cut, but that's about it. Besides that, I'm back on July 11th, so I think it's gonna be good.
Right back to it. But before we get
Hmm.
too far away from the night, from what it was, how did you savor that experience? Like, did it feel any different walking into the arena? Did anything feel different as you're the main event? You got to be there a little bit later, usually, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, most definitely. It was something that I would really like to get used to. I liked it a lot. It felt, obviously everything was new, but it felt right. Everything felt right. I liked the spotlight. I liked the extra pressure. But in reality, it's just It was awesome. It was awesome being able to fight in my hometown on the Coliseum as a main event and winning first round TKO. But I learned a valuable lesson from my last fight is, you took a loss and I took it very humbly. And I also got to take my wins very humbly. So I celebrated a little bit, but not too crazy. I just went to go eat some fast food. I came back home and right now I'm going back to work actually. Well, I'm gonna go to practice right after this. So
What was the feeling like for you walking out and there's 3,000 people there? You're the main event and there's 3,000 people. What's that like hearing your music and making that walk?
man, it was like nothing I've ever felt before. Just the love. I felt the love of my hometown, and it's something that I will always carry in my heart, especially as my first main event. I pray to God I will have many more, but this one was just very special because everybody that has supported me, even from day one was there. So it was just it was kind of like a thank you to them of like, hey, like you invested your time, your trust, and your effort, and this is my way of paying it back. So
It was about 4 minutes of work that you put in. What was it about the performance? What did you do? What was right on the night?
I technically practice a little bit of everything, right? But every fight, before obviously, I would cater to my opponent. I'm fighting a wrestler, so I'll wrestle more. I'm fighting a striker, I'll strike more. But this time around, I told myself I will make sure that all the areas of MMA are covered, and I'm gonna fight my own fight. I'm not gonna cater to nobody anymore. I started being a little bit more selfish. Where he might be whoever I'm fighting next. A D1 wrestler or a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Obviously, I will get that on check, but I want to fight my own fight. I will make sure I put the pressure that I want, and the preparation was a little bit more intense. I'll say that it was a little bit more intentional and more personal. I wasn't allowing myself to go off track or even just making the old mistakes of my last fight. So I made sure every day I was getting the work done and just recovering and doing it all over again.
What do you feel was like the biggest improvement that you made from that last camp to this camp?
For sure, mentally. It was more mental work. I always knew I had a very strong character and a lot of grit. But where this last fight went wrong was that I was fighting with a little bit too much emotion. I got pissed off. I didn't like my opponent, and he didn't like me, so it kind of added up. And the fact that I was, angry during the fight, that kind of itself kind of got me sidetracked. So I was just trying to hurt the guy instead of winning the fight. So I went back to the drawing board, told myself I need to be a little bit more cold-hearted. I need to go out there and don't feel any emotion. I get hit, just keep your hands up and hit back. Or if I drop somebody, I can get overly excited. I got to be controlled. So I decided to be cold-hearted. Even in my fight, I dropped the guy with my right hand and I just walked to him. I didn't get excited. I didn't feel anything because I knew the job wasn't done. Once they raise my hand and they call off the fight, then I can feel something. But during the fight, I wasn't allowing myself to feel excitement, feel mad, feel anything. So that was pretty much the whole trajectory of the last fight to this one. And I liked it. I am going to continue to do that. So
How do you push and achieve that much mental growth in a couple months?
um, I believe it was just the fact that I lost in my hometown in front of my wife, in front of my family, in front of my coaches. And I have never felt so exposed to the world, where like I lacked wrestling and I lacked uh, a little bit of a skill set that I knew I could have achieved and done properly. So just the fact that I wasn't prepared for my last fight into this last fight that I had, that feeling, I just never wanted to feel it again. So I make sure I worked my ass off in order not to feel it again. And it worked. It worked. I went into obviously my core self and just started digging what I was doing wrong, why was I feeling this way. And sure enough, I felt clean. That's what I told everybody. I felt clean, I felt collected, and I just felt whole. I felt as a complete as I could feel, as a fighter. And it just it worked out. It worked out to my favor, and I felt good. Wasn't even walking out.
Your coach is the matchmaker for the
Hmm.
promotion.
Yep.
Carlos is a big fan of yours, obviously. When
Mhm.
he's the one, part of it that decides you're moving up to the main event from the co-main event, you're getting this kind of opportunity. Does
Mhm.
does that hit different than it's just a different promoter when it's your coach sees that potential in you?
So we actually have kind of like a rule. So sometimes when we talk about CFC and when we talk about coaching, I tell them, hey, I want to talk to you like my coach. And then we start talking. Or, hey, I want to talk to you like a promoter. We start talking. Because obviously he carries a lot of roles, right? Um, but when he told me that I was moving up to the main event, I told him, okay, I've done the work. There's really nothing else, going through my mind. And like, I'm the main event and I get to show out my skills, but since he is my coach, it was kind of like a realization where like, you know, we're doing something good. We're doing something good. And for me to, it was my second professional fight, and for me to be the main event, it could have felt a little bit like I was out of place, but it didn't, because I believe I've done enough work to prove the fighter that I am already. And it was wholesome. It was wholesome to be able to be one of his fighters and be in the main event and getting this victory, under his name. So it was very cool. It was pretty cool.
I believe it's 2022 was the first amateur MMA fight.
You know what? You might know. I don't even know, but I believe so. 2020. Let me think. Let me think. I fought when I was 19, and I'm gonna be 21. 19. Yeah, yeah, 2022. That's right. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
How long were you in the gym before that fight?
That was funny. So I was training under Zen martial arts with Mando, and I was training for about 6 months. 6 months, and once I got that, hey, like, so I started training. I didn't want to fight at all. I didn't want to fight. I was just gonna do it because I was gonna go to wrestling for college. But then I got the opportunity to fight, and I took it, and they were like, "All right, man, like, don't expect anything else. You're gonna fight." I did one smoker before that, and it was cool, but I just wanted to feel the actual adrenaline of it all, So I got the fight and fight rolled when it was a Fit and HB, and that was actually the first time I go to an MMA event, and it was pretty crazy. I was like, man, I'm seeing people, breaking their arm, and then I saw somebody bleeding, and I was like, man, this is intense. Like, this is what a fight is, So I remember I was a third fight, and I was like, all right, let's do it. I'm ready for this. And sure enough, I did it, and it was crazy. It was a crazy experience.
You were going to go to college for wrestling, and then the
Yes.
sport stole you.
Yes, big time. So when I was gonna go to wrestle, COVID hit, and that kind of drew me back from it because I was also gonna go into debt right away. And I love wrestling, but I know for a fact my heart was in there. I wanted to do something more aggressive, and something more new. A new skill set. And sure enough, I landed into MMA, and I landed in an MMA gym, and the rest is history. Here I am.
What was it? What would you say that you found in finding MMA?
um, I believe the dominance of the sport and how primal it is. I believe that's why I fell in love with wrestling, and that's why I fell in love with MMA. It's very primal. It's very, and it is. Some people might think it's black and white. You put in the work, you're gonna win, but that's not also guaranteed. So I kind of like the risk of it all, and I just love fighting. I fought even before I knew how to fight, and it was pretty silly, but I fell in love with the fight game, and just having that feeling of knowing that I can carry my own. I never had to prove somebody. I never had to prove myself to somebody before with fighting and stuff, just because I loved it. I loved it from the get go, and even when I started, I had to kind of train a little bit behind my parents' back because they didn't let me fight. And then right after, I mean, they fell in love with it too. So it was pretty cool. It was a cool little journey of having my family supporting me at the end, and obviously my wife.
You said at the beginning, I was fighting before I knew how to fight. That just
Hmm.
sounds like the introduction to there was a deeper story there, and then you kind of trailed off in a different way. So what's the lead up to that sentence?
Oh man. So we're about to go way back to 14-year-old Vic. I used to get bullied a lot. I used to get bullied a lot. And I used to be a little chunkier and I used to get picked a lot, especially because also English was my second language, so people would pick on me. And at that point, even up to this day, I don't like all this like shit talk. I don't do shit talking because I just don't like it. I rather just do the work, So even before that, when I was little, people would just pick on me. Now just start fighting. I'll start fighting, even if they were joking or not, because I don't know. It was just I was always the target when I was younger, and fighting just helped me out tremendously. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna open the door. Hey, just my wife came in. Let me open the door real quick. I'll be.
And there's the dogs. It's okay.
Yeah, the dog.
We're live, people. This happens. Just quick
Yeah,
break.
I'm so sorry. Quick break.
Victor Santillan the third is our guest. It's my fight show, taking a journey with him, coming off the main event victory at CFC6. And back to what you were saying, sir.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just my dog. She's a little
You're good.
scandalous, but so yeah, I started fighting when I was younger, middle school, and I never fought in high school because I used to start wrestling, so I knew if I fought in high school, I would get kicked out. But in middle school, I started fighting, and it wasn't even nothing crazy. It was just like a little, the little scraps people like boys get into, and after that, I kind of knew the feeling of fighting a little bit, but I just wanted to get a little bit more detail of what it is, how to actually fight. And that's how it started, just being able to defend myself at one point, and I just fell in love with it, where I just was more curious into seeing how better I can get.
And it's captivated you in that way that it's kept you focused. It's captivated you where it seems to be a pretty major part of your life.
Exactly. So I always tell myself I'm fighting for a deeper meaning, and it's not usually just for the love of the fight game, but it's also for the love that I have for myself almost, because at the end of the day, I always tell myself when we have a the ref meeting, right? They always tell you protect yourself at all costs. And that's right. You have to protect yourself at all costs. And the fact that everything is relying on me, on my performance and on my skill set to win, I like that. I like that power that I have to a certain degree, obviously. And that I rely on my own skill set to win, so that kind of triggered that emotion of mine where I'm hooked, I got hooked to the fight game.
What do you think has been the biggest, like, I don't know, how to, what has been the biggest adjustment from what you were expecting to how training and how the fight game has been?
So I always knew fighting was hard, even from the early stages, because even when I used to wrestle, I knew wrestling was hard, but then I started fighting and it kind of trickled down a little bit where I have to still be on my toes and still show up every day. But I the adjustments I had to make over time was obviously just knowing what my flaws were, because when I started fighting, my ego was also pretty big, I didn't like that, I always thought I had everything under control until I lost. I lost my second fight right off the bat by TKO in the first round. And right after that loss, it kind of taught me a little bit more about myself and obviously about the MMA game where it's harsh and it's cruel, but you can make it into a lifestyle if you put in the work and obviously if you carry yourself well enough and not think you know it all. So immediately, right, I remember that week after my loss, it was pretty sad, but it was also very constructive in a sense of my own mental game, you know, where I knew I had to change the way I was. If not, this will happen again. And sure enough, I did. You know, I did. And it wasn't until this my first pro fight where I lost again, and I hadn't felt that emotion in a long time. But then again, I view it like a lesson because I didn't lose anything, if I'm being honest with you. I gained a whole bunch of experience against a very well-rounded fighter, and I took it upon myself to make sure that I get better. And my last fight was living proof, you know?
What would you consider the biggest inspiration right now for your fight career?
Oh, it's obviously my wife. My wife, and I have a beagle, you know, that's the dog you heard barking right now. But it's the fact that I want to provide a very nice life for us, you know, and maybe in the near future for my kids, you know, and um, it's that most importantly where I know I can create something out of this, you know. I don't know what it will be, but I want to create a life around the sport and being able to just give back to the community that once helped me, you know, in the later run, maybe opening up my own gym and, you know, having a couple of businesses. But it's mostly my family, the family that I am creating and the family that I already have, like my parents, my sister, and, you know, so, all my support system. If I'm being honest with you, I want to be able to give them back what they have gifted me, and that lights a fire on me, you know, every morning when I don't want to go to train. That's exactly what the people I think about, you know, and having my wife next to me, I just have to make sure that I keep myself on check and just be honest with myself, you know, and go to work, you know, just like that. So I believe that's my base inspiration.
Were they that group of people? Was there any surprise from them when you were like, "Oh, I'm hooked. I'm committed to MMA. This is what I'm doing. Plans have changed."
So for sure, my parents were a little bit against it from the early stages of it because they care about me, you know, and they didn't know the capability I have as a fighter until they saw my first fight, which is with Greg Allen, and I finished in the first round, TKO, and they were like, "Oh, this is awesome," you know. But then I lost in the second fight, and they're like, "All right, this is a little bit dangerous," you know. So it was pretty funny, but they were just surprised of how much of an impact this sport has done in my life. And when I was dating my wife, I was already training MMA, so she kind of just grew with the sport with me, you know, because I was also very green into the sport, and obviously she didn't know anything about it even before me. So we both grew with the sport, and it's a very beautiful sequence of life where we both grew in the sport and also in a relationship and around with my family too. Everything just became a little bit more stronger, and I believe that's because MMA just brings the raw emotion of everyone. You know, where it's happiness, when it's sadness, and it was awesome. You know, but obviously it was a little tricky at the beginning, having my parents worrying about me all the time, and you know, injuries, concussions, and all that stuff. Always, it's always scary. You know, so.
When you walked out of the cage for CFC5, it sounds like you kind of already had an idea of what needed to improve, what needed to adjust. You kind of felt it in that moment. But now you come off of a highlight reel victory. You're on cloud nine from CFC6, and you already know you're fighting at CFC7. So now, how do you reevaluate an attack, adjusting and evolving and improving with the same tenacity coming off of a spectacular performance?
Um, I did not let this win get into my head. So I didn't let it almost fulfill me, because it's my first win as a pro, you know. And even though it is a very big accomplishment, it's something that I just had to flip the page and make sure I go back to work because I have another fight in July, you know. And if I want to keep this going and this career going, I have to make sure that, you know, I celebrate, not even celebrate, I just acknowledge my wins, enjoy them a little bit, and back to work, you know, because at the end of the day, I am not where I want to be, especially with the sport. I know I can be a better fighter and a better human being. And I believe with time and effort, that will happen, you know. And a lot of people talk about, oh, I want to make it to the UFC, I want to make it to one, or I want to make it to all these big promotions. And in my eyes, I would love to make it to those promotions, but I know if I focus one fight at a time, giving it my all, those promotions are going to come regardless, you know. So I I live by the day by day mentality where every day I make sure I put 110% and I go to sleep fulfilled with the fact that I made the work, you know, I made things happen. And that's how I am focusing for my upcoming fight here in July. I'm gonna focus on making sure that everything is well established. I have good habits every day where I have to work, and sometimes the work doesn't have to be physical. Sometimes, like I mentioned, it has to be mental, and making sure everything's on check. And July 11th comes around, and I'll make sure I'll not only put a performance, but I dominate once again. So
Did they already announce your opponent?
yes, yes, everything's announced. CFC 7 is coming up. It's in my Instagram. I forget his name, but they have the flyer set up. You can check it out on my Instagram page, and we're ready to roll.
Trying to jump over there. All right. Oh yeah. Okay. I did see it before. Briones,
Yes.
Canelo Briones. All right. All right. Hey, yeah,
Hmm.
he really is a Canelo. That's kind of interesting. What do you know
Yeah.
about your opponent so far?
So I saw him when I was on the weigh-ins. He is one of the coaches from one of my teammates' opponents, and I saw him. We were actually had a little conversation, and we were just talking about the fight game that he asked me what weight class I was fighting out of, and he's like, "Oh, I fight out of the weight, out of that weight class too." And I was like, "All right, that's a little, you know." I just didn't think much about it, you know. And once I went out there, did my fight, and went back to the locker room to get stitches, my coach told me, "Hey, he wants to fight you. I'm not too sure if you're interested." And I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that he called me out like that, because I was like, all right, cool. You know, you're gonna get what you're expecting, you know, which is the complete version of me as a fighter and making sure that everything's on check. So right away I told him, hey, I mean, I just got a couple of stitches. My whole body is healthy. Let's run it. You know, I'm not gonna say no to a fight. So that's how that fight came along. And yeah, he announced it. That's about it. You know, we're back in July 11th, but this is what I do for a living. You know, I do construction part time, but man, fighting is what I do. You know, it's something that I'm good at and something I always keep improving. So once he told me, hey, you know, you want to fight? I was like, yeah, dog. You know, that's what fighters do. You know, I'm gonna stay ready and I'm gonna go out there and perform.
So safe to say, not personal, but did that spark a little bit of motivation in you?
Of course, because it's something that I like about it, the fact that he called me out the most, because hey, like, I want to fight you, you know. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, he didn't tell me that to my face, but he said it to my coach, right? Where like, I want to fight him. I was like, I mean, all right, cool, you know. But I just make sure that I'll make sure I get the work done, and I don't want to sound rude or anything, but I don't like that, you know. I don't like the fact that he wants to fight me thinking because he can win. So then I was like, all right, cool. You know, if he wants to fight me, let's do it. You know, put it on paper. Let's see if that's true, and let's run it. So
What makes you a hard fighter to deal with? What makes you hard for your opponents?
I believe it's the fact that I'm hard on myself already as it is. You know, even when I miss practices, nobody's perfect. You know, I've missed practice before, or even a recovery session, something. You know, I go into this spiral where I can't even go to sleep comfortably. You know, I go to sleep a little bit impatient, knowing that I didn't get the work done. So I am already hard on myself, and the constant battle is, can I show up for myself every day, you know, to practice or to a recovery session, or just for myself, you know, I need to show up for myself every day. So the fact that I put in this much effort, and, you know, money isn't everything, but money goes into the formula: money, sweat, blood, tears, frustration, sleep deprived, you know, whatever it is. I put my body through hell and back. So I believe that that's what makes me the most dangerous fighter, because I am doing this out of the love for the fight game and the love I have to, mess people up. I love that feeling, and that's something that I have never have experienced before, that feeling of knowing that you beat somebody up and you made it in a very fashion, like in a very performative way where it looks like art. So that little trajectory of making sure that it's not just a fight, it's MMA. That's what I love about it, and making sure that I get the job done. And I think that's what makes me dangerous, because I'm not in there because of the money, or I'm not in there because of the fame. I'm in there because I love it.
Determined, accountable, maybe a bit obsessed with the sport. I'm hearing also.
hmm Big time. Yeah, you have to be a little crazy to step into the cage. Am I right? But I believe obsession beats talent any day, but discipline beats obsession. You can always be obsessed, but if you don't put in the work, you're gonna be in some deep trouble sometimes. So I just gotta show up, and even though sometimes I don't feel like it, I just show up, put in the work, and I believe the obsession just carries along by itself.
Victor Santillan the third. We can see him back in action. CFC 7, July 11, El Paso. Check him out. He's from the Elite Kickboxing Academy. The scene in El Paso, southern New Mexico, that area, it's blowing up right now. It's good to see all the action, all the fights, all the gyms. Appreciate you for dropping by the show tonight.
Of course, thank you. And obviously, whatever you need, let me know. I'll be here. And thank you so much for having me here.
It's great getting to talk with you, sir. You have a good night.
Likewise. Have a good one. Thank you.
There was our first guest, Victor Santillan III, CFC, Elite Kickboxing Academy. Let's not forget about Empire Promotions, Kingdom Fight League. He brought up Zen Martial Arts. There's Empire the Gym. We got Battle at the Basin. We have the Desert Dynasty crew in Alamogordo. There's more than just, and we love them, but more than just Jackson Wink, Fit and HB, Borg MMA and Fitness, Nobody's Villains, Sandoval Fight System. You got those incredible teams here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But the rest of the state, there's a lot of talent. There's a lot more great martial arts and coaches putting in diligent work, and a scene that is once again starting to come alive regionally speaking. So that's all great to see. Having so much fun talking about combat sports. And real quick, before our next guest gets here, because I believe we're going to have Chris de Santiago any second, gonna real quick get it out. Simon Powell, probably the biggest win from the PFL this past weekend. Yes, they're in Sioux Falls, backtracking where I was a couple minutes ago before Victor Santillan joined us with the win over former tournament champion Emiliano Sordi. You could see this putting the young Powell, the Europe title challenge, the Europe PFL Europe winner, excuse me, easy for me to say, putting him probably one fight away from knocking on the door of Corey Anderson. And he's really one of the few bright young prospects with finishing ability that I've seen in the PFL that has that extra charisma, feels like there's a star quality. So Simon Powell, definitely worth checking out. Now, as we are going to continue the combat sports conversation, I see our second guest checking it. And we are welcoming Chris de Santiago back to My Fight Show. A pleasure to talk to you once again. How you doing?
Pretty good, Micah. Thanks for having me on. How's your day going, man?
Man, doing pretty well. There's been a lot of combat sports going on. Before we get to that, is there anything new with you?
Yeah, so I recently left Full Violence yesterday. I've been with them since 2024 as a social media manager. But yeah, kind of yesterday I decided to kind of part ways. But yeah, now it's kind of just focusing on MMA Island and all that good stuff.
So back to focusing on MMA Island. Love the tagline. A new wave of media. What interviews, what stuff have you been up to recently? Because I saw and I've seen you doing some of the same people I've been talking to that you've been getting back in the mix.
Yeah, so I think my last few interviews have been the Blood for Blood people from BKFC, Taylor Sterling, Cameron Delano, professional bull rider turned BKFC fighter. I'm talking to a lot of people on the regional scene, like Fury FC. I like to cover the Texas scene as well. Like Roybert Echeverria, he has a fight against Paris Moran, Fury FC title fight on the line. So yeah, I've been talking to a lot of Fury FC guys, some UFC guys every now and then. But yeah, it's been fun.
Mentioned Texas. Just before you came on, we were talking to Victor Santillan, up-and-coming prospect from El Paso, Texas, from the Elite Kickboxing Academy. So yeah, a lot going on, a bunch of promotions popping up around Texas with Fury, with Peak. There's a Kingdom Fight League. There's the Combat Fighting Championship. There's quite a healthy scene there.
Yeah, RAF, I think, has a card in Dallas. Frankie Edgar, Marab, Armin, Gable Stevenson, a lot of UFC names. So I'm excited. Hopefully, I could go to that one.
You brought it up. Blood for Blood. That's tomorrow. Metal and Mayhem combined. And for everybody wondering, if you watch it live, you can see the concert and the fights. The playback, you'll still see the concert, but they said you won't actually be able to hear it if you're not watching live. Taylor Starling gets a last-minute opponent in Sydney Smith, and it's courageous. This is a rough spot for Sydney Smith.
Yeah, and I feel like with Marisol Ruelas, she already had a tough fight in Taylor Sterling, and I don't think Ruelas had the greatest record either. Smith, I feel like she has a tough challenge on her hands in Taylor Sterling. I mean, that's an experienced veteran who's, fought MMA. She's fought the baddest women for the title before. Yeah, she has a big challenge on her hands this Wednesday.
I think Taylor Starling almost has a chip on her shoulder about recently what's happened with Misfits. Talk to her and lead up. And then with Mary Sorella, she was wondering if she was going to make weight, if this fight was even going to happen. I wonder if there's going to be like a point to prove as she comes out to try to just dispatch of Smith really quickly.
Mm-hmm. And I think coming back to bare knuckle boxing, especially off of a loss, I feel like the fire in her heart's going to be to get the finish and to really put a stamp on her performance, get back in the title picture, because, I mean, she's headlined before, and I feel like if she could get a good finish here, she'll be back in the title conversation, whether it's at flyweight or a strawweight.
In that same kind of thought process, I don't know if he'll reach title fight, but probably not the main event, the co-main eventer. I think Jake Boswick with the most on the line of anybody here. I think it's something like 3 wins in a draw over his last 4. I think this kind of puts him knocking on the door of the rankings if he can get by Stewart.
Yeah, and Stewart, Stewart's pretty good. I've talked to him before. I think he was the first BKFC fighter to win in the state of Texas. He's really good. I think he's coming off a loss to BKFC, but I think if he could beat a guy like Jake Boswick, I feel like a lot of doors will open for him. Same thing with Boswick. I mean, if he could get a guy win over a guy like Rod Stewart, I feel like he could make a run towards the title. Who knows, though?
Rod lost to Jeremy Saseda here in Albuquerque, beat Bryant McLean here, and then, went over to the Texas card, was the first winner there, loses his last one, so that evens him out at 2-2. Both guys, a lot on the line in this one. Boswick, not to mention, I wonder if it's almost added motivation with his friendship with Alex the Terrible and having brought him into this sport. I think that's also helped his crossover fame with the metal community, seeing their training footage. So it's a pivotal night for him, I think, also like in a star-making factor.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how the production side of things will be tomorrow, especially with all the concerts and the fights going on. I'm not like too much into metal. I mean, I'll listen to metal here and there, but I am very interested to see how they do tomorrow.
I was just talking to a buddy actually before we got on to do the show tonight, and I said, man, him and I had both been to a lot of concerts, and after a band plays, for them to get their equipment off, the other band to get their equipment actually on, and then you get it tuned and set, you got 20, 30 minutes of downtime. I'm hoping that they've already worked out a way that transition is happening during the fights. So it's almost like seamlessly a fight ends and then you got the ring announcer, let's head to the main stage, and you're able to go and then just really quick hype up a fight again, get a walkout. I hope that they have the production well thought out, and this isn't a lot of stop and start.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the walkouts will be too, because like if they're gonna be walking out to their own music, or if they're gonna be walking out to the bands or something like that. I'm really interested to see how they do it, and who knows, if this is a successful event, they could be doing multiple Blood for Bloods a year if you think about it.
That would be interesting to be like, hey, both of you have to pick songs from the band, and that's going to be their last 2 songs. We're playing them off by playing you guys out.
Yeah, I believe Alex the Terrible's gonna be performing after he fights, so like who knows if he'll be able to, do that physically, like if he's physically gonna be able to do that afterwards. But yeah, we'll see.
I believe so. What it is, and I'm looking. I have one graphic here that I can see from Instagram. I believe that Slaughter to Prevail is going to be the very first band to play on this show, and then Alex will fight. And what it is I guess they talked him out of headlining. Probably, dude, you're gonna need to go get checked out. Your hands, if nothing else, even if you win, are probably going to be messed up. And then I think he's supposed to play this weekend, as there'll be a continuation of this festival, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Daytona. And he's supposed to play one of those days also.
Wow, yeah. And fighting on a Wednesday, I mean, like I haven't heard of a fight on a Wednesday since maybe Fight Island, maybe back in 2020, right?
You're probably right. I was thinking, PFL
2021,
done
I
some
think.
Thursdays, but yeah, Wednesdays. I don't know of many MMA that's been on a Wednesday.
Yeah, I think the Fire Island that Chimaev won the 2 fights in like 1 week or whatever. I think that was on a Wednesday or something like that.
You know what? You're probably right. So we're talking back all the way back to COVID, back to we have nothing to do. Please entertain us, UFC.
Right. Those are the days though. I mean, Fire Island, like I feel like for MMA Island, I feel like it boosted a lot of the followers that we have. I feel like a lot of people confuse Fire Island for my company MMA Island. So I ended up profiting a lot from Fire Island, I think.
Oh man, you were able to grab a bunch of the attention and piggyback.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Talking about the bare knuckle, this past weekend, we also had bare knuckle MMA, the Game Bread FC card. Have you been checking out the bare knuckle MMA?
Yeah, so like obviously like I've always been into Game Bread Bare Knuckle. I feel like they've had events over the years. This one really caught my eye because when you have your Romero headlining against, a guy like Nicholson, right? I mean, you got to tune in to watch that. And there's so many UFC veterans on that card as well. Like Kurt Holloway is one for sure. And like there's a lot of and then Luis Palomino too, former BKFC champion, littered of names from top to bottom, and I feel like the Game Bread really put on a great show with this one.
I feel like there's almost like a so close element with Game Bread, that they've been so close where they've tried to do some really cool things, and we've seen a couple announcements in the past, and then it just doesn't play out exactly how you wanted. Like at the last event in the Dominican Republic, you bring in Yoel Romero, you bring in Hector Lombard. There's the Cuban rivalry. There's all that pride. There's the blab blood that they don't like each other. And of course, Hector Lombard isn't able to make the card. And instead, Alex Nicholson's like, of course I'm willing to fight. We saw him not get to fight in the Dominican Republic because his opponent didn't show up to check in on time, which I've always heard that lauded, and we always warn guys locally, but that's some amateur stuff. You don't expect that to happen when you're entering a $500,000 tournament. I mean, that's laughable. So I just almost feel like there's this all so close element to Game Bread MMA.
Yeah, so I feel like it gives people options, outside of UFC. Rafael Alves, Brendan Gertz, former Bellator title challenger, Sabah Hamasi. It gives them a place to fight elsewhere. And obviously, Bellator's not around. PFL's obviously they're picking up people, but it's more like the women right now. So I feel like while it might not be the best promotion, I feel like it's definitely a steady option. It gives fighters an option to fight outside of the UFC.
They're definitely, from what I've heard, paying well. They're definitely giving guys opportunities. It's just that also close. It's not their fault. You went from what would be an oh my god main event to a really good main event. Like I believe I saw on the playback, there's about 170,000 views. That's not bad for the event. But I could almost imagine it would be double that if you would have got the Lombard Romero fight just from the international appeal of how known those two entities are. So like it's good. Just unfortunately for them, it's so close to being great. Now, on that, the card was awesome, and Jamel Romero is an absolute savage. Took down Nicholson and broke his jaw in one punch. Like that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's not the first time he's done that before because I feel like with who was it? Was it Alex Pelosi or something like that from in Bellator? He broke his jaw. So I mean, age is just a number for him. This guy's crazy.
You got him. Luis Palomino pulls off a third round, and albeit controversial because maybe the ref didn't need to stop it when he did. It was a third round come from behind victory. I like how the MMA still feels like MMA. Like you watch bare knuckle boxing and you watch boxing, and it's two different things. But MMA, gloves or no gloves, there's a lot more of a similar feel to its MMA just without the gloves.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like one opinion I have is I don't think right now they count the bare knuckle MMA fights on the actual record or like on their professional records. I feel like they should because I mean, while the gloves are off, I feel like it's basically the same sport. Just take off the gloves.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It is. If you look at topology, they count it as like a subsection. So
Yeah,
knowledge, but it's
and I
over
feel
here.
like and I feel like if you're still knocking people out with knees or still submitting them, it's like that's still MMA. Just take off the gloves.
Right, because I'm telling you, you brought him up. Rafael Alves, I'm gonna be hard pressed to not consider him for like MMA submission of the year because we haven't seen many guys just get the back and chicken wing just wrench someone's arm like he did to Anthony Njokuani.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the chicken wing in a long time. I feel like the last time I've seen it was probably in a regional scene, maybe like years ago. But yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that one.
I think I've seen it more when guys have someone belly down and they're able to manipulate that shoulder muscle and grab that arm. You don't really see that happen from taking a guy's back and just wrenching on it. So there were some cool things. Like it's always cool to see Kurt Holoba. He's another guy that I feel for him because there's probably an alternate universe where he's not UFC champion, but maybe he's Jim Miller. Maybe he's able to hang around in the UFC for 20 fights because he's somebody that he's definitely not regional level. He's just in this weird place where he's not exactly UFC level.
Yeah, he's kind of in this gray area, and like I feel like if MVP is to stay like in MMA for the long term, or I feel like they could benefit from, or the fighters could benefit from a promotion like that, where maybe they're not good enough to be ranked in the UFC, but they're definitely than the regional guys. So I feel like there should be a subsection where these guys could go to MVP, where it's like maybe the best outside of the UFC. That's where they fight.
And talking about there needs to be another place for them to go. Hypothetically, we do have that place. It's called the PFL, but it feels like they're like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I saw this really weird statistic this year. The title fights they've all been on the international cards. We've had cards here in America. We're not getting title fights. Just a weird statistic, but they're attacking different markets. Sioux Falls this past week, Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. What is your perspective on the new look PFL, new leadership involved, and obviously trying new things without the tournament around?
Mm-hmm. So I think they're headed in the right direction with Jen Martin. I do see them signing a lot of women, like a lot of female prospects lately. I feel like that's a good direction for them to be in after kind of like losing Nagano. Because if you think about it, if they're signing the next wave of women's MMA, you're taking away from UFC, and they could have stars like Dakota Ditcheva. I'm not saying that any of these girls could be the next Dakota Ditcheva, but the more you sign, the more likely you are to have a star in your hands. But on the flip side, I feel like PFL's their viewership, I feel like can't be that good. I mean, they're not even on ESPN Plus anymore, which is a subscription a lot of UFC fans had before the Paramount Plus deal. And so right now, as an MMA fan, I can't even watch PFL because I don't have cable, and I'm not going to pay for ESPN2 or ESPN1 or whatever. So I feel like they're missing out on a lot of fans in the States, especially. Their marketing is not the best. I mean, sometimes you have to go up on their Instagram to see, what events they're putting on, and you don't know you don't know that there's a fight going on until like the day after, until like an hour before, So it's just one of those things. I feel like they could be working on that, but obviously it's tough. But yeah, man, I hope they have a better broadcasting deal, because I feel like if ESPN, they're not getting the best out of that deal, and I feel like the fans aren't able to watch it as well.
I do get the press releases for them, but it's been kind of not putting them on blast, everybody, but from the insider scoop, they're not doing the media calls and the media scrums. They were at least allowing, hey, push one, ask a question. They were doing the old school UFC Zoom calls, not like we're doing with PFL where it's one-on-one, but they were having, with BKFC, they're having all of us on at one time and asking to ask questions. It seems like under John Martin, that stopped. So getting a hold of them to promote them has been a little bit harder, but I do like where they're building. And as you said with the women, I think it's a necessity to try to get to some of these women before the UFC does, because you're trying to give options also to Dakota Ditchiva. It feels like, Liz Carmouche is booked to fight in San Diego. That's the only name I kind of really want to see Dakota fight against.
Yeah, I didn't even know that Liz was booked already. But honestly, I feel like that was the best fight to make Liz Carmouche, former Bellator champion, PFL champion versus Dakota Ditchiva. I mean, how do you not make that fight right now? I mean, that's pretty insane if you think about it.
Yeah, you got Liz Carmouche, UFC vet Viviana Araujo, one of the names that had just signed there, June 27th in California. So maybe that's a de facto lineup, because there was 2 weeks ago, I want to say, in Pittsburgh, where you probably didn't see this, but like 4 of the fights on the card were women flyweights. So it felt like you're almost having a de facto reshuffling of the rankings and lining something up to get Ditchiva active, because she's your biggest star. We haven't seen her. And as we're saying, you guys are turning over a new leaf. We're saying that, but you need to produce the fights that are going to attract the audience to want to figure out, hey, how do I get that extra ESPN subscription? How do I get to ESPN2 where they're showing the main cards now? So it's been like a give and take. But the broadcast relationship I was going to bring up to you, I've seen a lot of people rumoring that they could be heading towards Fox Nation, the same home as the Real American Freestyle. Have you also seen that stuff?
Yeah, so like honestly, I don't have a Fox Nation subscription, but if you think about it, if PFL were to go on the same platform as another league that I'm interested in, I'd be more inclined to, buy into subscription, right? But yeah, I like what the RAF is doing. I think they're getting a lot of big UFC names. I feel like with PFL, they're lacking in the name value, and so right now I feel like they need to make the best fights possible. The best needs to fight the best. I mean, UFC, you got Ilya Taporia, you got Arman Tsarukyan. They're not fighting each other. That's crazy to me. Liz Carmouche should be fighting Dakota Ditchiva. Obviously, Liz isn't the youngest anymore, but she's still considered what I consider the best in PFL right now. So have them fight each other. They just need to have the best fight the best.
They really should be able to build towards that kind of grouping. We should be able to make these matchups finally, like you said, a Ditchiva versus a Liz Carmouche. This past weekend, Logan Storley wins the main event 30-27. I'm not sure or 30-25, actually, excuse me, as he's still just imposing his wrestling game, if that puts him any closer to a Thad Gene, to a Musafayev, who I believe, a Kurmagomedov, who has their title. I think they're still having a corporate issue with identifying who they want to be stars, or who they believe they can lock down to be the stars of the company.
Yeah, and like, no offense to Logan Storley, but I feel like with his style, with his wrestling style, and he doesn't really put butts in seats. Obviously, South Dakota, it's his kind of hometown, I guess.
that's the place where he's going to sell. But outside of that, I mean, Logan Storley title fight doesn't sound interesting to me. I feel like we've already seen him fight the best guys in Bellator. MVP, Amosov. I'm not really interested to see Storley fighting for the title, but obviously I feel like he needs a finish. He needs a stamp to really get him to where he wants to be. But yeah, right now I guess welterweight title. I don't even really know what to look out for when it comes to the PFL.
And mention the Fox Nation app. I believe they do have the PBR bull riding. I'm not sure how many people are into that, but it's also considered an adrenaline sport. You have the Real American Freestyle. If you come to the end of the road with ESPN and your PFL, just looking at the landscape of combat sports, there's probably only 3 options. If the Zone wants to get back into MMA, Vice TV, and then Fox Nation, it feels like those are the only 3 entities outside of Paramount that are trying to actively be involved in combat sports.
Yeah, I feel like there's another option of HBO Max, because they did have Bellator fights on there for like a hot minute. Not the longest minute, it was a hot minute. I feel like HBO Max could be a player. That depends if they really want to get into it. I don't see Netflix, going for PFL. I would say HBO Max is a potential a partner. I feel like Prime Video's for one championship, right?
They were, and that seems to be dissolving, falling apart. I don't think that relationship currently exists anymore. I believe I've seen everything on YouTube or one pay-per-view that you can get off of their website. So that's really dissolved. And on the HBO side, they might be out of the combat sports game because there's the corporate merger with Skydance. So they'll become Paramount, and then Paramount is already locked into the mega deal with UFC and Zuffa. That would kind of eliminate them. That's why Vice and Fox Nation feels like the 2 most obvious suitors for PFL. And if you're PFL, Real American Freestyle has the heavy UFC influence. PBR already owned by TKO. I don't know if Fox Nation would be hesitant to bring them in because, hey, we're already kind of working with TKO. Maybe Vice TV would become the biggest platform, and we've seen them with LFA, with BKB. They are making a real conservative effort to have more fights on their air.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the PFL is doing, or I don't think it's necessarily their decision, but like with their time slots to go, like I think they were trying to compete with a UFC pay-per-view card the other week, because I think Stotts and then Pettis, they were fighting around the same time as the last pay-per-view card, and it's like, who's going to be, or not pay-per-view card, but last numbered card, but who's going to be watching PFL if UFC is going on at the same exact time? So hopefully they could find a better broadcasting deal, and then like a better time slot, like PFL on Fridays. That would be awesome. PFL on Thursdays, maybe even that works. Just not Saturday.
Who decided to go to Saturday? Like, Saturday was a no-go. They played nice. They understood this when they were on the same network. All of a sudden, they're not on the same network, and ESPN's like, hey, we want to air competitive program of the same genre. The mistake is none of the audience, you're not stealing any of the audience. This isn't, I don't know if you're a pro wrestling fan, you're old enough to remember, this isn't WCW, WWE. Yeah. This is the UFC and PFL. There are miles of difference between the 2 products and how the audience responds to them. But the 2 companies that are starting to get a similar response, and I don't know if you've noticed this, because we're both doing a lot of BKFC interviews, but BKB is making a real concerted effort also to gain on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've noticed their bantamweight champion, BKFC's bantamweight champion, what was his name? Like Ignacio Blas or something.
Alberto.
Okay, yeah, him. They took him last year, and now they got Mick Terrell, who was the BKFC UK heavyweight champion. And I feel like that's not the best signing, because, he is kind of 42. He has lost to Ben Rafael in the first round, and obviously Ben Rafael is not the champion anymore. It is a good signing, but, if they start to snipe out multiple names in BKFC, they could make a dent in it for sure.
Well, with Mick Terrell, who had been with BKFC, and I'm pulling up right now, his fighter profile still there. He was coming off of the win over McFarlane in March, where he reclaimed the UK heavyweight title. That was rebounding from the Rothwell loss. So it kind of felt like they were still, with Dave Feldman's talked about it, they want to make a further push into the UK. Both companies really do want to get further into the UK. I thought Terrell would still be a ticket seller there. He's still somebody that they're able to pull in a crowd with. So I'm a little surprised they let him go. And then it's to Alfredo Angulo, who we saw fight Julian Lane, and the Vargas brothers recently. So you have 3 real professional boxers on top of Mick Terrell, on top of Pick Jardine. So slowly but surely, there are names that BKB is picking up. And I'm like, I know that name. I know that name. Huh.
Mm-hmm. I feel like with BKB, if they were to sign more UFC veterans, I feel like they could really pop off. I feel like they need that because they don't, if you think about it, they don't really have a Mike Perry. They don't have a Darren Till because, I mean, Darren Till's a huge signing for BKFC. I was like, I jumped out of my chair after seeing that announcement. I mean, Darren Till's huge. And I feel like BKFB, they don't really have a former UFC title challenger. I feel like, do you know anybody that they have right now that's, UFC veteran name?
No, their biggest names are boxing, with having Paulie Malignaggi, with having Alfredo Angulo, with now getting the Vargas brothers. The UFC vets that I most often see associated with their brand, Jack Marshman, Juan Adams. They're more some grizzled vets. There's some Bellator vets. There's a heavy UK presence, but no, there's not the Eddie Alvarez, the Jeremy Stevens, the Mike Perry, which, as you bring up Mike Perry, is he even a BKFC guy anymore? I mean,
yeah. So I think with the way BKFC does business, it's like if Mike Perry wants to go out and do an MMA fight or a boxing match with Jake Paul, they'll let him. As long as it's not in like a competing bare knuckle boxing business like BKB, it's fine. I think that's the way that they kind of let things slide. I feel like even if Franco Technoglia, like they're letting him fight in PFL. I don't know if he's currently signed to BKFC, but I feel like they just kind of let their guys do what they want. But obviously, they can strip titles and stuff like that if they don't necessarily agree with your moves,
I think Dave Feldman blew his top about Tenaglia. That's why we got Soto Bonner too. He was mad as all ish about that one. The Perry thing may be a different ordeal because he's such a big draw. But if you all of a sudden told me that they're going to put Perry against like Jason Jackson and MVP offers more money, I could see him staying away. I just don't know. I mean, I know we all want the Darren Till fight. And I'll get myself in trouble once again because I already brought this up with Taylor, and I haven't got any bad text messages yet, so I don't think me and her got in too much trouble. I was underwhelmed when they said the biggest signing in BKFC history was Darren Till, because there's numerous UFC and boxing world champions that they had signed previously. I'm like, I ain't trying to get a Scouser to punch me, but you were cool in your day.
Because, I mean, Austin Trout, too, I feel like stands out. Mike Perry, I mean, at the time, I feel like when Mike Perry was signed, it wasn't the biggest deal because he was like maybe 1-0 post UFC. But yeah, a guy like, if you think about Austin Trout, I mean, there's definitely been bigger signings than Darren Till.
Jamel Herring. I'm sorry, even just the fanboy in me. I'm like, you signed Eddie Alvarez? Oh my gosh! That one hit me in my little feels. I'm sorry, Darren Till. Biggest UK signing ever for BKFC. I think we all agree on that one. Also, I think he is about to beat the brakes off of Aaron Chalmers in his debut. Like, Chalmers is a game fellow. He had a little run in Bellator, but that might be biting off a bit much going up to a guy that was a UFC world title challenger.
That fight reminds me of like Austin Trout versus Diego Sanchez. Like, I just don't really see Chalmers really. I don't see a road to victory for him. I feel like this is kind of going to be a slaughter, I feel like if Darren, I mean, it's hard to find a guy to fight him because, I mean, he's kind of so high level in the stand-up department. So, yeah, I mean, I was talking to Cameron Delano the other day. He wanted to fight Darren Till, but even that fight kind of seems one-sided. You know.
I've kept Tris probably a couple minutes longer than I already told him I was going to. I know he has an engagement tonight to get out to. We know that with the Game Bred Bare Knuckle MMA, I'm returning to that before I let you go. It's a tournament system. Are you prepared for Anthony Smith or Thiago Santos and Yoel Romero to see that in Bare Knuckle MMA? Because those have been the three most impressive heavyweights, and none of them are heavyweights so far in this ordeal.
Yeah, I mean, that's an awesome to think about, because Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos, they've already fought in UFC before. Thiago Santos, Yoel Romero, they fought in PFL before. So I guess it's something that we haven't seen before, but Bare Knuckle definitely changes a certain aspect to it. I feel like Yoel Romero, a guy like him, can really benefit from the most from not having gloves on. And I feel like Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos, they have their hands full with a guy like Yoel in a sport where he could really do some damage. You know, he could break jaws, you know. Yeah, Anthony Smith, though, he didn't look too bad in his Game Bred debut. And obviously coming off that performance in his last UFC fight, he looked pretty good. Thiago Santos looked pretty good. I'm excited to see it.
He absolutely savage Chase Sermon. I never thought we were going to see that Lionheart Anthony Smith again. That was magical.
And against a guy like Chase Sermon too, like those are fights that you never see coming, but yeah, ended up happening.
I think Rafael Alves is my favorite to win the lightweight side of the tournament.
That's a good one, because I feel like if he meets Kurt Holloway, it's going to be like more striker versus grappler. It's going to be good to see. And I feel like with Alves, I mean, with Bare Knuckle, I feel like you can do a lot more damage. So I feel like, and when it comes to strikers versus grapplers, I feel like the strikers kind of have the edge because it is no gloves, you know?
He's Chris de Santiago. Check him out at MMA Island, across social media and their website. Again, thanks for coming on the show.
Awesome. Good to talk to you, Micah. Thanks so much, and have a good day, okay?
Whoa, okay, there I am. I'm back. All right, screen was a little messed up there for a second. Chris de Santiago talking about everything in combat sports that I made him talk about, from Bare Knuckle MMA, the Mighty Trigon, the BKFC, the PFL. We went all around everything but the UFC, because you can check that out at MMA After Hours. New episode is up today. We're a couple minutes away from Jorge Hernandez to talk about boxing. But before we get to that glove boxing, I got to remind you guys that our first guest, Victor Santillan III, huge victory at CFC 6. You go on over to Facebook, Robbie Ray Images, check out all the beautiful work he put up from being down there in El Paso. You want to look like a beautiful piece of work? Head on over to Barber Gabe Fades, Lobo Plaza. It's barbergabesfades.net to book your appointment. Walk-ins are welcome, but believe me, you want to skip that line, because there's a long one with everybody in the house there to pick up their Barbers R Us beard balm. We got something special coming up right now, and I am so excited to do this next interview. We are just one moment away from it. So let's see if we can get this loaded up. Jorge Hernandez in just a few minutes, but we didn't tease this one, and I think we're about ready for it. And a pleasure to talk to Jamel Herring.
Thank you,
sir. Thank you for the time.
Anytime, Micah. Thank you for having me, man.
BKFC, a transition over from the glove boxing to bare knuckle boxing. A lot of people question the move. How many times did you get the, why are you doing this? What are you thinking before that debut fight?
I got it a lot. Just because, mainly just of the fact that a lot of traditional boxers, we look at our fists obviously as our tools. So they was more worried about me basically messing up my tools. But I think once they see me get through that fight and how I looked in the fight, I got a lot more praise and less like I think this time around I've heard less on why, and more like okay, I see what you're doing. It's more like just now just still just continue to be careful, but not so many questions on why I'm doing it.
How much different, though, was it than what you expected from amateurs to professionals to your entire career? You have boxed a lot,
Yes.
but I always get the response, this was a lot different than all of that, though.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think again, when you have those gloves on, you have a few inches at the end of the glove to find your spacing and timing. So without the gloves, it's just you and your physical body now. You have to find your new marks as you coming in and getting out of the danger zone. But I think after like the second round, when I started finding my rhythm, that's when it started coming. Okay, I know I need to be at, know my timing. I got, I feel good. I feel loose now. Okay, let's just go out and just have fun and do what we do.
From the competitive perspective, from making the adjustments, from being in there, did it feel that much different of a fight night for you than the last several years have been?
No, I think once that adrenaline started kicking in, it just felt like I was in my natural habitat. You know what I mean? Like I was where I belonged. I belonged at in the ring. Obviously the ring is a different ring from a boxer's ring, but nonetheless, it is a ring. So I felt like once I started finding my groove, it just felt normal, and we had fun.
To wonder if there was commitment. The second fight here, main event of BKFC 89, and you're fighting for the title. Was there ever like a feeling out process mentally for you in the thought of, is this for me? Will I go back to traditional boxing? Or when did you become sold? Because obviously, to fight for the title, you're pretty sold.
No, I was pretty much sold after the first fight. When I spoke with the guys in the back that actually make the decisions in the BKFC and the praise. I know at the times during the first fight, the crowd was getting a little uneven, unsteady in there because of obviously everybody was getting knocked out left and right here, and I cannot agree. But for the most part, from the ones at the top, and then you seen like social media, I got a lot of praise from my performance, and so it just felt good, and I was like, okay, this is where I want to continue to go down this path because again, once I start something, I want to finish it on my own. So I was heavily pushing to get, a world title opportunity. And when I got it, I was over the moon.
Pretty sure I wrote a pretty gushing paragraph myself about your performance. I mean, a very tricky guy with an awkward style in Matt Guyman. How much were you able to learn in that about the different kind of styles you're able to present in bare knuckle compared to boxing?
Timing. It came with him. It came down to timing again. But people don't realize, like I was getting turned down fights left and right. So when Guyman came across the table, I just immediately took it because I just wanted to get in there. And plus, I figured that before that fight, Matt Guyman he fought Ryan Reber, and then Reber ended up getting the title shot with Justin. So I figured, hey, if I take out this guy and do it better, they have to put me on top of the list to go for a world title. So that was one reason why I really wanted the Guyman fight. And again, once as you've seen, once I started frustrating him, then that's when I knew I had him. Once I got him mentally and I beat him mentally, I knew from there I could do whatever I wanted to do in there, and we just had fun doing it.
Now that you've gotten your feet wet in this ring and felt it out, are there any adjustments that you make towards camp? I know that Austin Trout, one of the things he spoke about was also incorporating a Muay Thai gym so he could feel the clinch positions and kind of get used to that in close. So that was an additive. Have you done anything to adjust forward?
Yeah, David told me that, right, really literally off the rip before I even got into the ring the first time, that he wanted me to work with MMA guys just for the clinch and the aggression and things of that nature, and not just solely focus on just boxing, which I respect. Because again, I love how like the BKFC is just a mesh of all types of styles and competition from all over. So I couldn't just have the boxer mindset. Again, you've seen the last fight, I wasn't blocking with my hands up like a typical traditional boxer. Because again, even getting hit on the hands hurts. Even having your guard too high, punches can still slip and you don't see it coming. So I felt like I took a page out of Austin's book as well in terms of just using the whole ring into my advantage and just being smart and knowing when to get in and get out of the danger zone.
How dedicated of a process was that, camp, to make some of those initial adjustments to get past some of that defensive muscle memory that you've built up for decades?
It was definitely a big adjustment. Even here in Southern California, we actually use a smaller ring You know what I'm saying? Just to get used to having somebody always on you, throwing punches at you, and not relying so much on having, guarding with your hands. So again, we use a smaller ring here just to get used to, you may get a guy who's just gonna try to jump all over you from beginning to the end. So instead of you sitting there curling up in the corner, you gotta fight back. I feel like with the BKFC, you gotta start a little bit more faster than traditional boxing, where you can take a few rounds and then you get your rhythm. Because again, it's only 2 minute rounds, it's only 5 rounds. So I feel this camp, we basically on, starting a lot faster as soon as the first bell rings and going from there and making adjustments as we go along.
What has it been like also in this process, the new sport? Has it been almost invigorating for you to have this new puzzle to be figuring out that's bare knuckle?
It's like a breath of fresh air because it's something, again, like you mentioned, anything new always feels good. Even a brand new car feels good. You know what I mean? Brand new house, what I'm saying, feels great. So just for me diving into something new and then getting and being allowed to fight for the pinnacle, the title at the very top and potentially going on to doing great things as champion, that's probably one of the best feelings you can ask for as a competitor.
I brought up Austin's name once already, but you could match the feat that he's accomplished and become a crossover sport world champion. What would that kind of feat mean to you?
Oh, it'll mean the world. It'll mean the world that, what I'm saying, that I still have a lot in me. That anyone, it doesn't matter who you are, if you have the strong mindset and the eager and the growth and to want to learn and adapt and do different things, you can. It all depends on, saying, how you feel at the end of the day. So if I can go out here and win big and, saying, and match the same feat as Austin, that's a badge on my chest right there alone. And I'm actually happy for Austin. He's going for his second world championship. So it's just great to see him, even at his boxing career, going to do great things. And you can see within him as well that he has like a new sense of a purpose rather than he did at the end of his boxing career. And with the BKFC, he's just happy. And I know exactly where he's coming from.
You just said something that touches also on the background. We couldn't go too far into the interview without touching on the flag behind you that's
Yeah.
prominently displayed. And you said a sense of purpose, and how much does that coincide with, as a young man, when you found the military, also kind of finding a sense of purpose?
I mean, I pretty much became a man in the Marine Corps because I was 17 years old and I had my 18th birthday in boot camp. So the Marine Corps is pretty much, really all I know as an adult. But to go out here around Memorial Day weekend again, compete for the highest honor, which is the world title, and to represent the Marine Corps is always a huge is a huge honor. But again, I don't take it. I never take it lightly. And I'm just happy that, I have my Marines still rooting and following behind me as I represent them as much as they represent me.
Always got to thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
The fight, Nate Maness. Were you familiar with that name before they presented it with you?
I caught of his couple of his for obviously his BKFC fights, because again, whenever time the BKFC comes on, I do sit down and watch it as a fan just to watch it. So I've been familiar with him, and I knew that he was going to be somebody that was going to be good on that level from what he's done in his first 2 fights. So again, I wasn't surprised when David gave me the call and told me, okay, it wasn't going to be Justin, that was going to be the guy. You know what I mean? But so I give all respect and credit to Nate. Despite what people may say about his UFC career and everything like that, I believe it takes a lot just to get to the UFC. So I respect him for that feat as well.
He's a solid fighter, more than a credible MMA run, over I think it's like 77% winning percentage in MMA. We've seen what he's been able to do in bare knuckle. As you're indulging, what have you found is particularly intriguing about his game?
Oh, he's going to come forward. He's going to come forward. Unlike Guyman was a little tricky. He's bouncing all over the place, but I know Nate is definitely going to come. He's going to come bring the fight. He's going to come looking for the stoppage. So, but I think that helps me because that's going to create openings because, just quick twitch muscles. I can get out of a way of a punch and I can counter back with something of my own. So I think it's going to be a lot of excitement. He's still a dangerous guy. I never take anything lightly. He's here for a reason. But I think, his style is going to work a lot more in my favor compared to Guyman's style.
Also, and I know you don't want to probably think of it in this direction, but your experience just in boxing is probably going to be a lot more than the experience that he's ever had to go up against live. So how much do you feel like that at some point in the fight could be an advantage, just that you've been to world-class
I mean,
depths?
experience always plays an advantage, but you still can't take it for granted. You still have to go out there and play as if like this is like for me mentally. I have to prepare like this is still my toughest challenge, so I can always stay sharp and not fall asleep behind the wheel and get lackadaisical in there. So, but I definitely I know, like I said, I've been to the Olympics. I've been on. I fought in many world title fights. I got a deep amateur career. I got a deep professional career, but it's all useless if I don't take all that experience and use it in the correct way going into this fight.
When you think about it in everything that you've accomplished, world champion boxing, attempting to become a world champion in bare knuckle, I said the Olympics. Are you purposely trying to put yourself into the argument when we're talking about these all-time great combat sports athletes, as we now have so many varied combat sports and people jumping around? We bring up an Alex Pereira and Austin Trout, guys of kickboxing, boxing, MMA. Are you trying to enter yourself also in that kind of conversation?
Absolutely, Micah. Absolutely, absolutely. I want to be. For me, especially coming from Long Island, we usually look down upon from the guys in like the bigger boroughs like the Bronx, Manhattan, whatever. I want to be, what I'm saying, I want to be the guy that's been known like Long Island produces great fighters, and then we go from there in terms like you mentioned on a national stage and in the world level. Like I just want to go on and just represent where I'm from and still be considered one of the best fighters to come out of that side of the world.
He's been a serviceman. He's been outspoken about mental health, which we haven't even got an opportunity to touch on. A world champion, a world-class athlete, a world-class spokesman for the sport, and he's the headliner of BKFC 89. Jamel Herring, it was an absolute honor to get to touch base with you, sir.
Thank you, Mike. And we'll have to talk more. I'm telling you, I feel it in me. I feel like I will become champion, and I look forward to us speaking again about what's next in the future, going from being the challenger to being the defending world champion. Because again, my next goal after this is beginning on that BKFC pound for pound list. So if I got to go for continue fighting the best out there, I'll do that.
Awesome, sir. Truly can't wait to hear that story. And that was absolutely awesome getting to talk to Jamel Herring. Didn't think we were going to be able to make that happen. We had been trying to get that conversation going all night, got it scheduled, was so excited about that. Shout out to Robbie Ray Images, Barber Gate Fades, Barbers R Us Beard Balm. As we go from the bare knuckle boxing, I think we're ready to talk about some glove boxing. Let's bring in the one and only Southwest Fight News' Jorge Hernandez. Can you hear me, sir?
What the fuck is up? Wait, can we cuss on here?
Yeah, I don't think anybody cares. It's like YouTube and Facebook. It's Instagram. It's a bunch of people that probably know us. So
Awesome.
it'd be strange if you weren't cursing, right?
Wasn't sure if this was a radio bit. And I'm like, oh dang. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'll warn you if it's ESPN radio.
Yeah.
That's Saturdays, not Tuesdays.
All right. I just wanted to make sure. Thanks. You're the only one that can get me back on screen here, man. So I appreciate the time.
I forced you or pulling you in here, and I knew that this was going to be a big week for you because Angelo Leo, I know that's a huge attention point for you all the time.
Yeah, I think anytime any boxer and native, you talk about the Jackson's MMA gym and how many of those guys are transplants, and that stage has kind of changed, right? I know we're supposed to talk about boxing, but I'll bore you with MMA here for a little bit, but we were there at the prime of MMA for New Mexico, right? I mean, you had Tim Means, you had Carlos Conde, you had Holly Holm, you had John Dodson, all folks that were born and raised out of Albuquerque. So the fact that we currently have a world boxing champion, and I mean, people forget Angelo Leo. He went to high school here up, I think, through his sophomore year before he moved to Hollywood and then ultimately Las Vegas. But he was born and bred. He's southwest part of the city. So, obviously he's one of two boxing world champs in the history of boxing from the Southwest Quadrant, and Bob Foster and him. So it's just really, really important, I think, for people to pay attention to what he's doing. And his last fight against Ronaldo Lopez, or I'm sorry, how long ago was that? August? Was that 2024 already? Holy crap. So you talk about one of the greatest knockouts, probably top 10 championship fight knockouts of all time. And that just gets repeated. You see that on ESPN, you see DAZN now, because the fight is, I guess I'll get into promo, even though they're not paying me. The fight's taking place on DAZN on Saturday night, and they're just constantly repeating that same highlight, even though it aired on ESPN. It was just an incredible knockout against a very formidable opponent. And stylistic-wise, Micah, that was one of the greatest fights, I think, like skill-wise, that I think I've ever seen in my life, up until Angelo Leo obviously knocked out Lopez. But he's obviously fighting Rais Aleem, who is 23-1. It doesn't have like the best knockout power, but it's a hidden power, kind of like Leo, right? Leo's not necessarily a KO artist. He's a brawler. He's definitely a brawler, and he's got a lot of technical skill. But this fight is a fight that scared me back in 2020 and 2021. I don't think Angelo would have fared well against Aleem between 3 and 5 years ago. I think Angelo has just went up another level since then, skill-wise, and it's really interesting to follow him on social media. You know, he's not here in Albuquerque anymore, and I mean, he does come for some of his high-profile trainings, right? But it's rare that we get that glimpse that we used to see him, and whether it be the training camps or the promos. I remember back at the fight shop, he would spar or get on the gloves with his dad, and I know I'm kind of going off topic, but for me, Angelo is such an interesting story, man, because we always knew the skills that he possessed. Yet, when he was in New Mexico, he was never the main event or co-main event. As fucking crazy as that sounds, he was always the second fight, the third fight on usually like the 6 or 7 fight cards. And he made the decision to leave, and it was rightfully so. Not to knock anyone else, but his father isn't a promoter, so he couldn't put him on his own cards here, right? So he didn't have that luxury, so he had to bust his butt. I think we profiled this in the past, but he had a pretty crazy story where his dad took custody of him when he was very young, just because his mom ran into some problems, and his family was separated, where it was Angelo went with his dad, and then the younger brother, and I can't remember how many siblings he has, but excuse me, went and stayed with his mom. And it's just really interesting story, and it's rare, right? As usually you hear of like the mom taking over and raising the kids on her own or whatever it may be. And he has a different story where his dad has been there every single step of the way, suffered. They've shared stories to where they literally slept in the projects in West Hollywood, and there were roaches literally crawling over them when they were waking up, and they grinded, and they are where they're at now. And Angelo is so damn quiet. Like, you know, he's such a reserved person that a lot of people don't know that aspect of him. So for me, that's why his story is so incredible, and why this fight is so important to the history of New Mexico boxing, because he legitimately has a chance to be an undisputed champion in this weight class. Now, a lot the other champions are going to drag their ass and fight in the problem is with the smaller weight classes is you have so much more of an international flavor. You have the South Asian mix. You have the European, specifically England mix. You have all these light fighters that are spread out through all over the world. So and in Mexico, right, you got Espinoza, who's an awkward 6'2", 6'3", whatever the hell he is, fighting at 126 pounds. That guy is just an anomaly all in himself. So for Angelo, I think this fight is incredible opportunity to really showcase his skills. And it's been, you know, it's been a while since we saw him fight, and he fought in Japan, right? What a great opportunity for him when he fought Tomoki Kameda a few months back in a really, really close fight. Like, Angelo almost lost that fight. If Kameda came in prepared a little bit more, maybe even with the two week more training camp, he would have lost. Like, because you had the fighter, the fighter's brother was a promoter out there in Japan, and the scorecards were close, like 1 or 2 rounds the opposite way. Angelo we'd be here having a different conversation. Now I'll shut up just because I went off for like 3 minutes on one question.
Good to hear from Jorge. He's been excited to talk, man. He just, wow, welcome back, Jorge Hernandez. He had some things to get out right there. No, you were right. I'll never forget going and meeting Angelo and his dad, and you know how businesses change. There was like a dojo, like right there, like Lead and Yale. I think it's now possibly a laundromat, but either way, it's just a little building, and it was a dojo, and they're like, meet us at this like kung fu school. And I'm like, wait, what? And they're having to hang up their own bag, and it's just Angelo working, and talked to his dad a little bit. Went and talked to him, and I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, they're nice enough to let us use the building during the day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you're the only ones here. We're getting in work. So yeah, no, the way they have always grinded, always persevered, it was on full display, as you said, in that knockout victory here, because it felt like the scorecards were on the other side. Angelo needed that knockout and put it together. It wasn't a dominant performance. It was an up in the air fight where everyone was tentative, and then he had that crushing moment to separate himself. So yeah, he has hit superstar level in a different way. And this was one that was missed here locally by a lot of people. This fight, though, in particular, Reese is already ranked above him. I see on BoxRec. Is it that dangerous? You really think there's that much disparity between the two of them?
Man, it's here's what gets me with the lower weight classes is the ages of some of these guys, because it's a really interesting grouping of folks, because with Aleem, the guy's 35 years old. That's why I was afraid of this fight happening 4 years ago when they were talking about it. Like 31, he was in his prime, right? You talk about that sweet spot is the 26, usually the 27 to 31 age group for age range for even mixed martial artists is what you typically see. And then just, it's crazy how in most athletics, that's the peak, right? Whether it be basketball, whether it be, I mean, football's a little bit different where it's a little bit younger and maybe it goes a year or two younger, but with most of the other sports, that is a prime. And Aleem looked incredible around that time. But when it comes to skill wise, I know whenever you look at something like BoxRec where Aleem is 2 slots higher, that's, I mean, sometimes you talk about the algorithm and analytics that comes with BoxRec, but then what it doesn't give is the eye test. Angelo's a better fighter. Angelo's a better fighter than Aleem. He's a lot younger than him. I think he's 30, right? So Angelo's 31. No, he's 31 now, which is crazy to think, right? Because back when we were starting, he was this 19-year-old, 18-year-old kid that was fighting here, and here he is, 13 years into his career already, and just hitting. You know, what I feel is for Angelo, he's been in his prime since he was 26. I feel, and he fought some tough Asian dudes, some tough freaking Filipinos, and then obviously last fight he went to go fight a Japanese guy. Fight before that, it was a Mexican guy. So that's what I love about those lower weight classes is you get so many different types of styles of fighter. And those dudes are put through the gambit. Like if you were to ask me this, you know, this weight class, this 126-pound weight class is either the second or third best in boxing. Like people just have to give it credit for what it is, despite the fact these are smaller guys. But you talk about the champions right now, Rafael Espinoza, who's from Mexico. You got Brandon Figueroa from Texas, and you got Bruce Carrington from New York. And then you got Angelo. Most people are going to look at that list and probably rank Angelo fourth because of the fact you got Brandon Figueroa, who's got age on his side, 29, and he's battle-tested, and his 2 losses are to Stephen Fulton, the same guy Angelo Leo lost to. One thing I do want to add about that fight that Angelo had with Stephen Fulton is Angelo got outworked in that fight, which is crazy to think because no one's ever outworked him. The thing, I don't know how broadly known or widely known it was, Angelo tested positive for COVID in December and he fought in January. So that like to me is a big asterisk on that Stephen Fulton fight. Despite the fact that I felt Stephen Fulton was going to win that fight, that wasn't the same Angelo that you'd see. I mean, Obviously, he dealt with an illness early on, and he never made an excuse. I don't think he's ever brought it up publicly. So I think there's a confusion as to where Angelo ranks with those guys. Now, Rafael Espinoza, I mean, that guy is like, he's super talented. I mean, the guy's, they say he's 6'1". He's probably closer to 6'2", and he's ranked number 1 in that division, and it's for a reason. I mean, that guy's 32. I feel he is beatable despite the fact that he's 28-0. The only guy I feel nobody can be is Carrington in that division. That guy is something else. That guy is something special, and he's 29 years old, and he's just, I think, hit his prime. So if I were to pick anyone to be able to become undisputed between that weight class, I mean, unfortunately, I think people would be pissed at me. I don't think it would be Angelo. I think it would be Bruce Carrington. But Angelo definitely, his engine and just that Mexican type of work ethic and effort that he has is the wild card in all of that, no matter who he might go against in that division. But, I mean, you're talking about a division that's freaking loaded. I'm looking at BoxRec now, and Angelo does have he is a 5-star boxer on there, and he's the lowest ranked of the 5-star guys. Then you have Nick Ball ranked right above him from England, who actually lost to Brandon Figueroa. I don't know what it is, man. Anytime a Mexican or Mexican-American goes to England, they always take the British guy's title. I mean, it's just something else. But Brandon has a work engine as well. So that's where, I mean, it's a fun division because you can put all those guys in a, in a steel cage, and you're talking about 1,000 to 1,500 punches thrown in every single one of those fights. Like it's an exciting division, but I and just looking at his and Aleem's style, because Angelo's style is usually take some, give some, where Aleem is not that much of a work engine. I don't anticipate this fight being an exciting fight. I expect it being a good technical fight, and that's my only concern for Angelo, that he usually needs that.
The brawl?
He usually needs to mix it up a little bit, and if he's not going to give it to him, it's just the fight slows down. And here's the elephant in the room for me. I don't think it's the case for anyone else, because no one else thinks like this, but I think about it this way. I'm so analytical. Like, dude, whenever the brackets come out for NCAA March Madness, I say, what time of day is it happening? How far are each campuses away from wherever the neutral site is? Is like, even if it's an underdog, the underdog's only 20 miles away. You know what? I'm going to throw on the underdog. I'm going to throw some money on the underdog team, because they're probably going to have a lot of fans that are going to travel those 20 miles or whatever it is. So I take a look at things very differently when it comes to sports and society, I guess, and what I'm about to say. The fight's taking place in Atlanta. Atlanta is a predominantly black city. What influence is the crowd going to have? And the thing I feel is, I don't think it's going to have much of an impact, because Aleem at least doesn't seem to have any real connection to the South, right? He's from the Midwest. He's training out in Vegas, so I don't think that's it. But it might be a possibility to sway it. I know, even, for example, Stephen Fulton, he was worried about fighting Brandon Figueroa in Texas, right? I mean, you're going, Mexican Americans obviously is probably one of the biggest market and individuals or group of individuals that consume boxing the most. You're going to have the crowd screaming, yelling, and swaying it. So that's one, I think, wild card as well for me, besides the fact that I don't think Aleem's gonna brawl or fight into Angelo's fight plan, is which way is the crowd going to sway. And I think a lot of those early fights early on may help impact that. And that's just something I kind of think about. Not that the crowd's going to hate him just because he's Hispanic, but it is something to think about, right? It's just like, hey, it just naturally, you sway where you sway, but sometimes you just want to see a good ass fight. And here's the thing about Atlanta. They don't normally get world championship fights like this, despite it being a major city in the country. So I think they're just going to enjoy the fight. I don't think crowd's going to play a factor at all. I think Angelo's going to try to mix it up, and he's a good enough technical boxer to be okay. And I know the odds are slightly dropping against Angelo, but I think it's because people don't know what Angelo is going to show up, because, despite the fact in the last fight, Kameda, I feel that was a C+ Angelo, and he still pulled it off, right? So I think as long as we see a B+ version of Angelo, I think he wins this fight based off of points. And if you're a betting person, I think the decision was something like a -140 or -120. So that's a good bet to throw $100 or a couple $100 at in favor of Angelo.
As I just did a quick Google on the odds, yeah, I see Leo -285 to
Overall, yep.
-220, seeing Leo favored by decision -135 to -250. Jorge Hernandez, it was great getting to talk to you. Excited to see Leo. Your guess is Leo by decision?
Leo decision. I'm looking at something. I think it's gonna be like a 116, 112. For Angelo, it's imperative that he gets a knockout and a stoppage, though, to be able to be glorified as much as the other three fighters in that division are, just because, again, if I had to also rank them, I would put Rafael Espinoza. I'd probably put Bruce Carrington second above Brandon Figueroa. I'd have those guys flip. So I'd have Rafael Espinoza, Bruce Carrington, Brandon Figueroa, and then Angelo Leo. But with a knockout victory here, especially of someone like Aleem, who is very respected in the division and has never been stopped before, I think that's an important, I think, a very, very important and necessary fashion of victory that Angelo has to go with to be able to be considered for one of the other champions and have the public call for it. Otherwise, Angelo can ride this for another couple of years if he wants. Did you lose me?
No, we still got you. I can hear you.
Cool. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I think I think to me, it's going to be my type of fight. You know what I mean? A little bit rugged, a little bit technical. I don't think it's going to be a barn burner like we've seen Angelo in. I mean, we'll see what Aleem shows up. Maybe he'll throw the game plan out the window, but I think he's going to slow it down just because you can't go punch for punch with Angelo, because you're going to end up looking at a fight where both guys combined throw like 1,300. I think what Aleem needs is for this fight to be somewhere around the 900, 800, and 900 punches combined, and that's where I think he has an opportunity.
Jorge, it was truly great getting to talk to you. I'm definitely going to bring you back on for a whole bunch of more boxing topics, but Angelo Leo needed the spotlight tonight.
Definitely did, man, and I appreciate it. And great interview with Jamel, man. He seems like a really, really nice, legit dude, man.
Dude, I'm hoping to get him back on again. BKFC looks to be another great chapter and another good opportunity for him.
Awesome. All right, Micah. Well, I appreciate the time, man. Have a good night.
You too. You have a good one, Jorge. And quickly out goes Jorge Hernandez. And yeah, let's talk some bets real quick about UFC 328 to close up the night with the one and only, back from a fishing trip, James Romero.
Hey, what's going on? Dude, it's an emo night. The Bass Pro hats. It's pretty funny.
All right, I couldn't tell. It looked like I was close.
It's like you know how they make like different versions of the Bass Pro hats. This one just says emo night.
Looks like you're back from I said from fishing. Is it from another rave?
No, it's just from, it's called emo night. It's literally just they play at Launchpad and they do play a bunch of emo music and go on stage, and it's for little scene kids back in the day like me.
and we have to ask, are you just back from sparring?
Oh yeah, I am, but this is from last week. This one was from little uppercut, wink, and then this one was from a hook from Ty, I think.
Oh, that's funny, because actually earlier, just like 30 minutes ago, we did have a question. Does Ty Miller have a fight booked yet? I don't know if you're allowed to say yes or no, but he's already punching you in the face.
Oh yeah, well, Ty's one of those guys. I don't think he has anything booked yet, but he's one of those guys who's like me and him. We're never out of the gym, so there's the most I've seen him take off in the years I've been there is a week. And that's the reason he's good. It's because he trains hard. It's not secret.
Sorry, did MMA after hours today, and my buddy Michael Carlisle, who I did that show with. We're just going to dive right into the main event. First off, people got to get there because the animosity is crazy, and he's like, I'm putting money on Sean Strickland.
It's the odds where you make it, you kind of have to. I think Hamzat's going to go out there and dominate, but it's kind of unbettable unless you bet him round one or bet him submission. But even those are priced at like round one is plus 120 maybe, and like by submissions minus 120 or so. So they're like, it's almost unplayable for me. We'll see what I end up betting. I'm gonna pick Hamzat, but I think he actually goes out there and dominates.
Hamzat Chimaev domination. That's what we're expecting. Do you think Sean Strickland has the style to give him problems or not really?
I don't think anyone in the middleweight division has the ability to give Hamzat problems. I think he's just different.
I was hoping you were going to have an analysis I didn't already say, but I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad and this is going to be one-sided. And I'm sorry to say all that, Sean Strickland, but it's just kind of what I'm feeling.
If he's able to survive the early rounds, he's got good cardio and pace where it could get ugly late if it goes late for Hamzat.
Co-main event title is also on the line. Joshua Van comes in as an underdog to the challenger in Tatsuro Taira.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little. I like Taira here. He's like in the minus 180 range. I just think he's grown, especially since the Royval lost. I'm going to bet Taira for sure. Van's good, but he shouldn't even beat a champ. He literally was going to get mauled by Pantoja and fluke arm break, but
he's a good scrambler. He's
he's
tiny. He's a good combination puncher. I'm so tempted about Van.
I can see why. I see why people are on that side, and I'll just about justified. But I just my prediction. I'm gonna bet, and I think Taira gets it done, especially what he did to Moreno and took him down and beat the absolute piss out of him.
Well, I was all over most of the underdogs for this. How are you feeling about the big tree trunk heavyweights? We have Volkov, former Bellator champion, coming in as the favorite, and Waldo Cortez Acosta, who was flavor of the year last year for the heavyweights, as the underdog.
Yeah, I like an underdog here. I actually used to think Waldo was kind of a fraud when he first got in, but he's proven he's damn good. And when he hits you with that right hand, not that Volkov's no slouch, but if Waldo mixes in the takedowns and wrestling, Volkov's very easy to take down.
Sean Brady, Joaquin Buckley, Brady coming in as a slight favorite over Buckley, who had trouble with his wrestling last time we saw him against Usman, but Brady got steamrolled by Morales, so there's a bounce back for both of them here.
Yeah, I think the bounce back's on Brady's side here. I think he's able to get to his game. If he's able to chain together a couple takedowns, his grappling's legit. The way he stays on top, his control and pressure, his freaking back's this wide, like. I think Brady gets it done. He just ran into a physical specimen of Morales.
Jeremy Stevens has massive knockout power. He's a pretty sizable underdog. He hasn't had an MMA win since the PFL, and he's taking on Bobby Green, sizable favorite, but the hands down will make this a pretty thrilling watch for as long as it lasts.
It's going to be a fun one, I think. That's my official prediction. I think Bobby Green's going to tear him up early and get caught with something fluky late, and Jeremy Stevens finally gets a UFC win for a long time.
All right, Stevens.
I think Bobby. It's the odds, really, plus 300. Like, if it was a closer line, more chances. I think he could. Bobby Green's a little chinny. I think it could look a lot like the Drew Dober fight. Remember that one where Dober was getting his ass kicked the whole fight, and then bink, and Stevens has that power. He still does. And he's been staying in shape in boxing. It's not like he's been out of the sport.
It's just he hasn't been successful when he's came back to this sport. The bare knuckle had been much better for him.
Yeah. He looked all right against Mason Jones?
He got out wrestled for the 15 minutes. He looked good on the feet, but again, he's looked good on the feet.
Yeah, but I mean, Bobby's not going to try to take him down.
That's why it makes it really attractive and interesting. Biggest favorite on the planet, I mean on the card, Abita Gutier is, I've seen minus 1,800 in some places. You can get all the way down to minus 900 if you find the right market. And Ozzy Diaz is all the way like plus 900 in some spots.
This fight's unbettable. I don't even know. Maybe props if you bet Gautier round 1 KO, because I think that's what's going to happen. Because I don't think he's going to even come out gun shy after his last performance. I think he's still going to go out there and swing hard. And Diaz just can't. Sometimes they're just too much of at a physical disadvantage.
Yaroslav Amaslav comes in as a favorite
on the card.
over Joel Alvarez. Alvarez was never a lightweight. He was always killing himself to make this weight. I love him at welterweight, but I absolutely love Yaroslav Amaslav, who's one loss in his career. His head wasn't into it. He was halfway in war. He was having contract problems with Bellator. I don't know which way to go here. I really love Amaslav.
I hate this fight because I love both these dudes. I'm like, it's annoying, but I think it's a little bit of a step up and too much of fighting a solid welterweight like that. I think Amosov was going to win this one. I wouldn't be surprised if El Fenomeno finds a finish, but I like Amosov here. It's a scary one though, because I just think Alvarez, he'll get taken down, and he doesn't work back up to his feet. His submission, I mean, he normally throws up submissions as defense instead of working back up to a base and getting back up to his feet.
Didn't he have 2 or 3 leg lock wins in a row at one point early in his UFC career?
Yeah, he's had crazy submission. His submission game is nasty, but I just think Amosov's too solid on top.
You didn't feel good about the chinniness of Bobby Green, and I mean no disrespect when I say this. Grant Dawson feels a little chinny to me as he comes in a slight favorite also over Matthews Robecki, who Dawson wins by out grappling people. Robecki really loses just by getting out brawled by people because he's hard to take down.
I like Robecki here. Same reason. Dawson's really good, really skilled, but talk about chinny. Yeah. I mean, he's a freaking skilled elite fighter. He's so good. He got dropped by a jab from Bobby Green, though.
Yep. Yeah.
Jim
Miller
here. Go ahead.
Jim Miller, an absolute massive, also underdog to Jared Gordon. If you ask me who wins this fight, I think it's Jared Gordon. You ask me if these odds are correct, I feel like they're a little wide.
Yeah, the odds are a little wide. Gordon's good. I'm gonna definitely Gordon unless he gets hit by a car or something before the event. Do you remember all that stuff?
The longer I'm in this industry, the more I'm not surprised that fighters get in car accidents the week of the fight. I just don't know why they're a magnet. I was talking to Mike Winklejohn last week, and he's like, we probably shouldn't have let Holly box against Stephanie in the original fight. Why? She was in a car accident 5 days before. What?
I didn't even know that. That's wild.
It just came out on Saturday when I had him on ESPN Radio on my Cage Minds Fight Hour. Guys, check out Cage Minds Fight Hour, ESPN Radio, Albuquerque 1017 The Team, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, CageMinds.com for all that stuff. But yeah, people getting in car accidents, man.
That's crazy. Yeah, I think Gordon clears here though. Jim Miller's pretty dang gold. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time too, but and Gordon's good. Like, he's solid. He's a good boxer. I thought he beat Nasrat Haqparast. I thought he definitely beat Patty, even though he lost both those scorecards. Like, he should be ranked. Like, he's a good fighter.
Roman Kopylov was ranked. He then lost to 2 incredibly massive power punchers. He now comes in as the underdog to Brazilian Marco Tulo, who does have 10 knockout wins on his resume. Am I wrong to say I'm not that impressed, though, with Tulo's victories? Because Igor Pretoria and Treshin Gore don't impress me.
Eating that fight, too. Oof. Gore's not bad either. Gore just had a good win over Azamat Bakoyev. I bet Treshawn Gore that fight is a big dog.
I was stupidly shocked by that one. I had Bakoyev easily winning, I thought.
Yeah, I found I made my pro debut on the Bakoyev card where he was the main event in Denver. Yeah, I saw him. He's not that big. I was bigger than him. He's shredded, but he's a good, solid fighter. But I just think he gets overpriced every fight just because like his Russian name probably.
Yeah, he came in with a good record. It looked like he had a full skill set. But here with Kopylov and Tulo, do you feel this is appropriately priced? Because I was just surprised that a guy that was fighting towards the top 10 is now an underdog to a guy rising.
Yeah, if Kopylov can't get takedowns, I think he's going to get out-pressured and outpaced on the feet bad. So I like Tulo here.
I don't think I've ever seen Kopylov working for his takedowns. He's more of a Russian striker, so maybe it isn't.
Almeida, remember? He was getting cracked a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good point. When there was a better kickboxer in front of him,
Tulo looked bad his last fight, but he fought a freaking good fighter, and he just. I think Tulo's still legit. I think he's a legit prospect.
Leroy Duncan ate him up, spit him out, proved that he is ascending and going to be a top 15 guy. That was an impressive performance. And that's probably also why I'm shocked to see, Tulo as a favorite. I guess they expect this is the rebound fight to see what he's truly made of.
I think it is. I like him here.
Pat Sabatini, he'll definitely have the grappling advantage. I was surprised. It was either his last fight of the fight before where he got the knockout victory, taking on Frenchman William Gomes. How do you see this one?
This one, I like Sabatini here. It's a little high price, but Gomes, he doesn't finish people. And the only way Sabatini loses if he gets bonked early, because he's a skilled fighter and one of the best grapplers in MMA. I think he's that good on the ground. I think if he doesn't get bonked early, I mean, it could happen, but Gomez doesn't really come out and bonk people. He literally fights so boring, so the shizzing machine. I think Sabatini wins here.
Basingor Sursakayev is the second biggest favorite on the card. I think the biggest thing for him is to look impressive and to look composed. Well, he came with a lot of hype. I think that he just looked kind of sloppy and almost let himself gas out his last time out. So I think you just need to look professional here.
Yeah, I think he gets it done here. I mean, I don't think there's any way he loses this one, but the price is insane. I'm not going to bet it. He was actually a pretty cool dude. He was when Ty was on Contender Series and I went with Ty out there. He fought on that card too, and him and his team were all pretty cool.
Oh, nice, awesome, and big card for him as he's a teammate of Chimaev. Chimaev put quite a camp around him for this one. You saw Khalil Roundtree was there, Brendan Allen. It seems like he might be owning all these guys the way they're looking at him.
Yeah.
The looks they give him, I haven't seen dudes giving other dudes that look since everyone at Jackson's was looking at young John Jones.
Yeah. No, Hamzat's a different breed, I think.
Opening up the card, you got Jose Ochoa versus Clayton Carpenter. Carpenter, small underdog, a little bit of a favorite there with Ochoa. Both guys came into the UFC, a lot of hype, a lot of expectations. 2-2 for Carpenter, and I believe it's 1-2 for Ochoa.
Yeah, it's a tough one to call. I think I'm leaning Carpenter because the odds. I just think it's dog or pass here. I think Ochoa relies too much on finishing at flyweight. I mean, and flyweight's a hard division to finish in all the time consistently. So I think Carpenter's a solid fighter too.
Carpenter decisioned Edgar Shaez on the Contender Series, and Shaez is now ranked in the top. I think he's in the top 15.
Is he? Yeah.
In the flyweight division. Making sure actually I don't see him. Never mind. Probably just right outside of it, but it feels like Carpenter a lot of hype and just hasn't that next level. Like his game, he's just maintained the same grappling base and hasn't taken that next step. So I want to see it. I'm hopeful he can, but I just haven't.
Yeah, I'm going to take Carpenter small here. I think it's dog or pass.
All right. So we got the official bets again from James Romero, and just to remind us, we were trying to do a lot better than we did for UFC 327. My God, dude, we went 4-8.
Oh yeah, no, I got cooked. And I did good on the main card. I had like parlays with Hokit, Costa, and I had everything tied to Yuri, and then I had a lot of straight money on Yuri. I would have won like $1,200 if Yuri would have won. And I'm like, oh wait, nice. He tore his knee. All he's got to do is make it. And he walks in with his hands down. But I'm like, God, this guy's retarded. I love Yuri, but gosh, that was
the pain. Oh, the pain.
Yeah, you were surprised at my Costa pick though that week.
I was surprised how well he performed, and yeah, no, that was a great one.
That was a good one. Yeah, hopefully we're better this week though. I've done good on the fight nights. I've actually done pretty dang good, but we don't do those for shows and stuff. But too hectic.
Too hectic. Do we got any fight news for James?
I thought so today, but we had someone say no. I got messaged by someone, Kale Sonnen's promotion. Hey, we got this dude, want to know, looking for a fight. I gave him JJ's number. I'm like, talk to my manager. We had it all offered, sent them the offer. Said, well, we'll let you know by the end of the day. And they said, oh, well, we're looking for someone with less experience. So I was like, come on. And that was May 30th in Portland. So, I mean, I'm training. I'm ready to take a fight on a week's notice. I'm in shape. I haven't really stopped training. So
he's James Romero, ascending MMA fighter. Fit NHB. James is a beast is how you follow him on social media. We got the picks. We got the bets. We're going to keep track of it. We'll talk to you for UFC 329 or sooner, hopefully, if we get some good fight news.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll let you know if I get fight news. As soon as I have a fight, I'll post it and I'll let you know.
You have a good night, James.
Cool. Later. Have a good night.
Later. My Fight Show. We couldn't do this without the support of Talk ABQ. ESPN Radio Albuquerque 1017 The Team, where they let us do the Cage Minds Fight Hour. Robbie Ray images, a ton of great photos up from CFC6 and more to come out. Those photos include photos of our first guest, Victor Santillan. Shout out to Jorge Hernandez, Southwest Fight News. Give us the breakdown, the ins, the outs of the Angelo Leo Reese Aleem fight. Meant to be able to get a lot more in with Jorge, but I want to keep up with doing our bets and predictions with James Romero. Jamel Herring getting to have a world champion boxer, a Marine, a BKFC bantamweight title challenger. That was an extreme pleasure. I appreciate everyone for coming on tonight. This has been my fight show. Enjoy the entertainment. Keep fighting. Don't forget, this is where combat sports lives. Have a good night.